The trade relationship between the United States and China is deeply strained. Both economic superpowers have imposed significant tariffs on each other's goods. This has created a tense atmosphere of distrust and uncertainty. The trade war, initiated during the Trump administration, continues to cast a long shadow over global markets. At the heart of the dispute are accusations of unfair trade practices. The U.S. accuses China of intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer. It also points to China's massive trade surplus with the U.S. as evidence of an uneven playing field. China, on the other hand, argues that the U.S. is engaging in protectionism. The trade war has had far-reaching consequences. Businesses and consumers on both sides of the Pacific are feeling the pinch. Tariffs have driven up prices and disrupted supply chains. The International Monetary Fund has warned that the trade war is harming global economic growth. Despite the high stakes, finding a resolution has proven elusive. Both sides have dug in their heels, making concessions difficult. The current impasse highlights the deep divisions and mistrust that characterize the U.S.-China relationship. China has responded to U.S. tariffs with a mix of defiance and pragmatism. While retaliating with tariffs of its own, Beijing has also called for dialogue and negotiation. However, Chinese officials have made it clear that they will not bow to pressure or accept a deal that undermines their core interests. Sincerity has become a key word in China's rhetoric. Chinese officials have repeatedly stressed the need for the U.S. to demonstrate genuine willingness to address their concerns. They have also demanded that the U.S. rectify what they see as erroneous, unilateral tariff measures. China's position is rooted in a belief that the U.S. has not treated it fairly in the global trading system. They argue that the U.S. has unfairly targeted them with tariffs and other measures. China sees itself as a rising power and is determined to protect its economic interests and international standing. The Chinese government has also sought to mitigate the impact of U.S. tariffs by diversifying its trading partners and boosting domestic consumption. While acknowledging the economic challenges, Chinese officials remain confident in their ability to weather the storm and emerge stronger in the long run. The U.S., under the Trump administration, has pursued a strategy of applying maximum pressure on China to extract concessions. This has involved imposing tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. The administration argues that these tariffs are necessary to protect American jobs and businesses from unfair competition. Trump's latest round of tariffs affects nearly all U.S. trading partners. However, China was notably excluded from the pause on reciprocal tariffs. This means a 10% baseline duty remains on most Chinese imports. Earlier in 2025, Trump further escalated the trade war by raising tariffs on Chinese goods to 20%, citing concerns over fentanyl production. These tariffs, dubbed Liberation Day tariffs, have increased import taxes on China to 145%. The U.S. has also taken aim at specific Chinese companies, such as Huawei, which it accuses of posing national security risks. These actions have further inflamed tensions and complicated the path to a trade deal. The Trump administration's approach to trade has been controversial, even within the U.S. Critics argue that the tariffs are harming American businesses and consumers by raising prices and disrupting supply chains. They also contend that the tariffs are ineffective in changing China's behavior and are damaging the global trading system. Despite the tensions, both the U.S. and China have continued to engage in trade talks. However, progress has been slow and halting, with both sides struggling to bridge their differences. The on-again, off-again nature of the negotiations reflects the deep mistrust and lack of consensus on key issues. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed that tariff negotiations are ongoing, but that China is currently to the side. The U.S. is prioritizing talks with 17 out of its 100 trading partners. This suggests that while the U.S. is open to dialogue, it is also willing to pursue its interests elsewhere if a deal with China proves elusive. Further complicating matters is the U.S.'s decision to close the de minimis tariff loophole for low-value Chinese goods. This loophole previously allowed small packages valued under $800 to enter the U.S. duty-free. Its closure disproportionately impacts online retailers and small businesses that rely on direct-to-consumer shipments from China. The ongoing negotiations are a delicate balancing act. Both sides are under pressure to achieve a deal that satisfies their domestic constituencies while avoiding further escalation of the trade war. Finding this balance remains a significant challenge. Section 5 Fentanyl, a new bargaining chip on the table. The issue of fentanyl trafficking has emerged as a new point of contention in the US-China trade talks. Fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid, has been a major contributor to the opioid crisis in the US. The Trump administration has accused China of being a major source of fentanyl and its precursors, chemicals used in its production. China has denied these accusations, arguing that it has taken steps to crack down on fentanyl production and trafficking. However, the US has demanded more concrete action from Beijing, including stricter regulations on the production and export of fentanyl precursors. Recent reports suggest that China might be willing to use the fentanyl issue as leverage in the trade talks. Xi Jinping's security czar, Wang Xiaohong, has reportedly inquired about specific US expectations regarding fentanyl precursors. This could signal a potential bargaining chip that China might use to extract concessions from the US. The introduction of the fentanyl issue into the trade talks adds another layer of complexity. It remains to be seen whether this issue will serve as a bridge to a broader trade deal or further complicate an already fraught relationship. At Section 6, Trump's optimism, hope amidst uncertainty. Despite the lack of significant progress in trade talks and pushback from Chinese officials, President Trump has remained publicly optimistic about reaching a deal. He has repeatedly stated his belief that China wants a deal and that an agreement is within reach. However, Trump's optimism has been met with skepticism from some quarters. Critics point to the lack of concrete progress in negotiations and the ongoing war of words between Washington and Beijing. They argue that Trump's optimism is more about managing public perception than reflecting the reality of the situation. The disconnect between Trump's optimism and the lack of tangible progress highlights the uncertainty surrounding the future of US-China trade relations. It remains to be seen whether Trump's optimism is justified, or if the trade war will continue to drag on, with potentially damaging consequences for both sides. Section 7, the economic fallout, a lose-lose scenario. The ongoing trade war between the US and China has had significant economic repercussions for both nations. Tariffs have disrupted global supply chains, increased costs for businesses and consumers, and slowed economic growth. While both sides have attempted to mitigate the damage, the trade war has undeniably had a negative impact. In the US, businesses that rely on imports from China have been hit hard by tariffs. Consumers are also feeling the pinch, as tariffs have led to higher prices for a wide range of goods. The agricultural sector has been particularly affected, with China, once a major importer of US soybeans and other agricultural products, largely shifting its purchases to other countries. China has also felt the economic pain of the trade war. The tariffs have hurt Chinese exporters and slowed economic growth. The Chinese government has responded with stimulus measures and by seeking to boost domestic consumption. However, the trade war has undoubtedly created economic uncertainty and challenges for China. The economic fallout from the trade war highlights the interconnectedness of the global economy and the high stakes involved. While both sides have sought to portray themselves as winning the trade war, the reality is that both sides are experiencing economic pain. The trade war serves as a stark reminder that in an interconnected world, economic conflict rarely produces clear winners. Section 8, Beyond Tariffs, the bigger picture of US-China relations. The current trade war is just one manifestation of the broader strategic competition between the US and China. The two global powers are vying for influence and dominance in areas such as technology, military power, and global governance. The US sees China's rise as a challenge to its global leadership. China, on the other hand, views the US as seeking to contain its rise and maintain its hegemonic position. This rivalry has led to tensions in a number of areas, including the South China Sea, Taiwan, and human rights. The trade war has further exacerbated these tensions, making it more difficult to find common ground on other issues. The current state of US-China relations suggests that the two countries are locked in a long-term strategic competition that will continue to shape the 21st century. The challenge for both sides is to manage this competition in a way that avoids catastrophic conflict. This will require finding ways to cooperate on issues of mutual interest, such as climate change and nuclear non-proliferation, while also addressing their differences in a constructive manner. The future of global stability may depend on the ability of the US and China to find a way to coexist peacefully and productively. Section 9, the road ahead, towards common ground or further conflict. The future of US-China trade relations remains uncertain. The possibility of a comprehensive trade deal that addresses the core concerns of both sides seems elusive in the current climate. However, the high cost of a prolonged trade war for both economies incentivizes continued dialogue and negotiation. Several factors will determine the trajectory of the trade talks. One key factor is the domestic political climate in both countries. In the US, the 2026 presidential election could have a significant impact on trade policy. In China, the Communist Party's grip on power remains firm, but it is not immune to domestic economic pressures. The outcome of the trade talks will have significant implications for the global economy. A successful resolution could boost global growth and ease tensions. However, failure to reach a deal could lead to further escalation of the trade war, with potentially devastating consequences for the global economy. The path forward requires both sides to demonstrate flexibility and a willingness to compromise. A return to the principles of the rules-based trading system, with a focus on fairness and reciprocity, would be a positive step. The international community has a role to play in encouraging dialogue and urging both sides to find a peaceful resolution to the trade dispute. The US-China trade war is a symptom of a deeper strategic rivalry. Finding a way to manage this rivalry and prevent it from spiraling into conflict is one of the most pressing challenges facing the world today.